Tenderhearted, the podcast for those of us who struggle with being extra sensitive in a less than sensitive world. This is your host, Amy Kelso. I'm a writer, speaker, teacher, and advocate for anyone who is tenderhearted or cares about someone who is. Hello and welcome to Tenderhearted. I am your host, Amy Kelso. Today I want to talk about finding your tribe. So one of the things that happens a lot with tender hearts, because tender hearts tend to be a bit different from other kids, and for better or for worse, other kids notice that. So a lot of times, tenderheart, while they're in school, may have trouble making friends. The other alternative, which does happen sometimes, is that tenderhearts will find other people who are kind of outcast, don't quite fit in, and they'll gather together a group of, as my friend likes to say, my group of misfits, right? The ones that don't quite fit anywhere else, but they fit in with our group. So if you were one of those people who was able to gather people in, thank you. You're wonderful, because there are those people who need the groups. Now, I know for me, I had a few good friends, and I did have kind of, by the time I got to high school, I did have a little group of the outcast, but I had a group of people. But for a long time, especially elementary school, I did not have anybody. And that is a very lonely feeling. And if you haven't experienced not having friends or not having a group to turn to, you may not really understand what that's like. Now, there's having friends, which is good, but there's having your tribe, which is 10 times better. When you're with friends, that's kind of a broad term. It could mean just people that you talk to when you see them, acquaintances, or it could be very close friends. The problem is a lot of times, especially if you do have trouble fitting in, you may find a group of friends that'll let you join them if you do your best to fit in, if you blend in, if you behave the right way. And I think that's true, actually, not just for tender hearts, but for a lot of kids find that the only way to kind of find a group is to pretend to be like everyone else. Some people spend their whole life doing that. I think for tender hearts, a lot of times we don't have that option, for better and for worse. We just stand out. And even if you try to kind of fit in, it doesn't really take. So there are lots of reasons, I think, that tender hearts may have trouble fitting in, just because some of their personality quirks and stuff. But one of the reasons is their compassion, which isn't a bad thing, but it can get in the way of trying to get and become friends with certain groups of people. Especially when you get to like middle school and high school, a lot of times kids will try to fit in with the popular kids and do things that maybe aren't as nice as they could be. So, but I think tender hearts, we tend to have trouble with that, and will not be able to do that for very long, at least. So let me give you an example. When I was young, this was actually when I was in elementary school, first time in my life, I was popular. I was hanging out with the popular kids, and I was so excited. We were walking home from school one day, and we saw a kid ahead of us who was definitely not one of the popular kids. He was someone who was picked on a lot. And one of the people in my group yelled to him and said, hey, you, why are you so ugly? Which is about the awfulest thing you could ask. And I just remember the look on his face. He turned and looked at us. I don't think that I said anything to him, but I also didn't say anything to them either. So I didn't stop it from happening. But that moment for me was the moment I decided I didn't want to be popular. If being popular meant hurting others, if it meant causing that look on that kid's face, I didn't want anything to do with it. So that was like third grade when I decided, I don't want to be popular, which I think was a wonderful decision, but it does obviously cause some trouble. And one of the problems was I didn't have a lot of friends in elementary school. I did find some in middle and high school, my own little group of kind of oddballs. Then you get to college, and then after college, making friends after college, as I'm sure every adult knows, is kind of hard. It's hard to meet people and get together because we're all so busy. I was lucky, finally, not until I was like in my 50s, that I finally met a group that I feel I can call my tribe. And what makes a friend group different from your tribe is that when you're with your tribe, you can be yourself. You can be 100% who you are, and your tribe not only accepts it, hopefully they accept it, but they might even appreciate it and like it. They're like, wow, you're crazy just like I'm crazy, or you're crazy in a different way than I'm crazy, but I get it. So they say, in order to find your tribe, to find a place where you really fit in or where you belong, where you're not just trying to fit in and pretend to be someone you're not, but where you really belong as yourself, finding that tribe, the secret to doing it is, guess what? You have to start off by being yourself, which is very hard to do, especially when you don't have a tribe to support you. But the only way to find people who can really relate to you and understand you is if you are yourself. So if you're an adult tender heart who's still kind of trying to work on finding their tribe, best advice is just to be yourself. Don't feel like you have to edit yourself for anyone, which is very hard. Trust me, I'm still working on it, but it is an important, I think, lifelong skill thing to practice. If you have a child who's struggling to fit in, kind of maybe encourage them as well. Be like, don't be afraid to be yourself. And maybe keep an eye out for other kids who maybe are looking for a friend. You don't have to be popular. You don't want to be popular. If it means you have to pretend to be someone you're not. No one should have to pretend to be someone they're not. So I would encourage your tender-hearted kid to be like, it's okay. You don't have to have a million friends, but I bet, let's see if we can help you find someone who maybe is having trouble fitting in as well. And that is where they can find their security while still being true to themselves. So obviously the biggest advantage once you find your tribe is feeling that not only can you fit in okay, but to feel like you really belong, like you can be yourself, you can let your hair down, you can be as wild and silly and crazy as you want, and your friends are not going to decide they're not going to be your friends anymore. Instead, they're going to be like, wow, she's fun to be with. I want to do that too. The point is, hopefully, I hope every one of you can find your tribe. And again, the best way to find it, which is the hardest thing in the world to do, perhaps, is be yourself. Being yourself should be the easiest thing in the world, but in our world, a lot of times you're not encouraged to, and you learn to be everybody else. Now it's time to find and be yourself. So good luck with that endeavor. And as always, feel free to leave comments below. I look forward to talking with you next week.